The help action in Dungeons & Dragons sucks. It's never used in combat because you really shouldn't. So it's only then used outside of combat, and even in those situations, it's usually in these weird, cringy ways where you're just kind of like, oh, I help, and you're just giving out advantage like it's candy. So outside of combat, broken and annoying, and inside of combat, unusable. I know unusable is probably a bit of a harsh word, but I want you to genuinely think when the last time somebody in your D&D games used the help action. Good luck. But even if you do use the help action, which in general in D&D is just a standard use of advantage. Normally you'd roll a d20, advantage roll 2 d20s, take the higher. Even the help action potentially, if used, could be useless, especially if at your table you let players roll dice one at a time. The first dice rolled could be a 17, and then the second dice, the help one, could be rolled and be a 2. So if you use your action in combat to give help, and then they rolled that help and it didn't do anything, oh my god. Well, what if we could fix that? Introducing the DC20 way of using help, that you could totally take and steal different parts of this to use in your D&D or Pathfinder games. Before I get ahead of myself, hello there, I'm the Dungeon Coach, creator of DC20, a brand new tabletop roleplay game. And in this video, I'm going to break down how I helped the help action turn into something that's actually balanced, usable, and inspires and encourages team play of people to come together and actually help each other. One of the big goals when creating DC20 is for players to actually play together and the characters work together, maybe even in combo type moments. I also challenge you this, take a step back and think about your D&D games in combat, and think about any time where players actually overlap with each other and actually combine and help each other instead of just individually going one at a time. Yes, they're attacking the same monster, but are they actually having any kind of teamwork? You might think so, but if you really think about it, no. So in DC20, the help action in and out of combat is fun and not broken. Okay, so first thing we're going to get into here is the issues of the help action in its current state of what you're probably familiar with of Dungeons & Dragons, and then what we do in DC20. The first issue with an advantage help action is that dice might not matter. Like I said in the example, they roll a 17 and then a 2. The 2 literally doesn't count. It's useless. Now, yes, if you were to switch those two and you rolled a 2 and a 17 or a natural 1, natural 20, obviously, then it's a huge difference. Wow. So sure, that could feel nice in that moment when it does happen, but in general, it either doesn't really matter, maybe increasing or decreasing a roll by 1, 2, 3, 4 to where probably you're fine anyway, or just absolutely useless. And then sometimes useful. Feels bad. Also, costing your entire action is a lot, especially in combat specifically, especially when you have multiple attacks and all these other things you could be doing. It's almost like True Strike, the cantrip where you spend an action to grant advantage. Why would you not just attack and then attack for a possible best outcome of 2 attacks landing? So in the situation when you have your friend, and even at low levels in the game where you could attack, they could attack, that's actually better than you giving them advantage where you have 0, no attacks happen, and then now you have a higher chance of 1 attack landing, sure. And are there some situations where that would be good to try and make sure you make an attack and all those things? Yes, I as a dungeon master have made combats where they're really interesting to where it's really hard to hit a person and try to give them ways that provide the help action. Quick shout out to Brennan Lee Mulligan, who I'm also talking to about DC20, by the way. Super awesome. It was crazy to actually sit and talk with him. But in their D20 campaign of Never After, he had one, no spoilers or anything like that. There was one mechanic where there was something really hard to hit. And in order to hit it, you had to have advantage and then sacrifice it. So that leads to an interesting thing where someone could give the help action to grant you advantage. And now that you have that, you're able to try and make this shot. But outside of that, spending an entire action, especially when you could be making 2 attacks or casting a spell, it's just not worth it. And then also, when you're outside of combat, you can just freely say, oh, I help them, and then they just get advantage, which is a whole another concept that I could make a whole video about. If this video does well, I'll make that. Like all that stuff, you get the idea. Okay, now I'm not just here to complain about stuff. I'm here to fix things and show a different option that you might like. So here's how it works in DC20, and then I'll talk about how you can port it over to D&D. The only thing you really need to know about DC20 as far as how it's structured is instead of having movement, a reaction you maybe not use, a bonus action you may or may not use, and an action, which is just one action. In DC20, you have 4 action points. You can use those action points to move, attack, move, help, because the help action in DC20 only costs one of those 4 action points. This alone makes it far more free to use, especially with other rules in DC20 where multiple attacks that you take start to gain stacking advantage. So if you do repetitive things over and over again in DC20, you gain disadvantage. So if you were to move, attack, do I make another attack? I could help and then dodge or whatever else you want to do and mix it up. So that part can't really help D&D in any way because the spirit of DC20 is openly more flexible. You have 4 points. You can use them in lots of more interesting and customizable ways. So 1 action point to be able to help somebody, an ally, it's fine. But now here's the big one. Instead of the help action granting advantage, the help action grants a help dice. What is a help dice? It's a single D8 that you can add to that roll. So the helper has that D8 they are granting to the person that's trying. Let's say the person's trying to move a boulder in some way. They're trying to move this boulder and they want to help them. Instead of just granting them advantage, they grant a D8 help die. That D8 is rolled and added to the check of the person that they're helping. I think this is beautiful in many ways because if the person rolling, it isolates that person's roll. How well did they do? So they roll the D20. If they roll really low, it probably doesn't matter how much the other person helped, they fail. Makes sense. And if they get to the point where like, ooh, they did kind of good, maybe the help can bump it over to make and beat the DC or whatever, awesome. And in that same vein, I have the helper roll their own help dice. So it truly represents they roll the D20 to make their check. They rolled the D8. How much did they help? It actually, the size of what their roll result is really in a role play aspect can show how much they helped. Is it only a 1 or did they get an 8? I think this just makes it more fun. And another thing to keep in mind is with advantage, you're rolling the D20. The maximum result of a D20 is a 20. So no matter how many D20s you roll, the cap, the ceiling of that's always a 20. So even if you have all these D20s you're rolling, you're just increasing the chance that the roll within the range of 1 to 20 is higher, right? But if you roll a D8, you roll that D20, it's somewhere in there, but a D8 always increases whatever they get, meaning that help always matters. It can never not matter. You're adding a 1, 2. Now, sure, it might not be able to make the DC and they rolled so low, it doesn't even matter. All those things obviously are the case. But whenever you help, you are always adding something to the check. So another thing here about how to balance this help action in this way, because again, a D8, if you add all these D8s, multiple D8s, the totals can get crazy. Oh my gosh, that's broken. Hold up, stay with me. Yes, in DC20, 4 action points and you can help. But if you remember what I said a second ago, or you might already know this, in DC20, if you make an attack, sure, normal attack. If you attack again, you gain disadvantage on that attack, meaning you roll 2 D20s, take the lower. Attack again, 3 D20s, take the lower. Attack again, what are you doing? 4 D20s, take the lowest. It's stacking disadvantage. I've done other videos about how actions and action points work, but for the help action, a similar thing happens, a very intuitive thing. So if you were to help and then you help again, the second time you help, instead of a D8, you only roll a D6 and the dice decays by 1 step. So the D8 is the first help, then D6 is the second, D4 is the third, and then you flip a coin for the D2. I'm just kidding. You can't do a fourth one. The D4 is as low as you can go. So this in general limits how potent the help action is. And trust me, I've done the math on it. If you have 4 action points and your friend has 4 action points and you were to help them, yes, you would grant them a D8, a D6, and a D4 on whatever it is they're doing. They now could make an attack with all those extra dice to be able to roll and get some high total and all these other things, adding their own action points into the thing they're doing. This is the combo move I'm talking about. And if you don't already know this about DC20, another iconic rule that defines the system is every 5 that you beat a target's defense by, you increase the damage you deal by 1. Now, the base damage in DC20 is much lower, so adding 1, 2, 3, 4 is actually a lot because the damage is lower. So if you were to pull off this combo move I'm talking about, which I have seen done in many different one-shots I've ran, many different things where, all right, the boss is it's only had this much health left. We got to do this together. And then 2 characters both spend in that movement to run over to a boss. And then they're like, I got you, combo move, let's go. Help. And this person makes an attack and does other stuff with spending their action points in other ways you can do in DC20. And the description of how crazy that combo move is and the number that they get together as a team, because they roll a D20 and add whatever they have, and then this person rolls a D8, D6, D4, adds that together. They both add together to get one roll that's one huge total that beats the class by adding more damage. crazy. I just got chills even thinking about that moment at the table. And to stop anybody in the comments already right now that's talking about, oh, well, that's broken, you can just keep adding all these things. Keep in mind, if you really wanted to do a very efficient turn and deal a lot of damage, you are spending 3 action points to grant a D8, D6, D4 instead of attacking yourself and doing other things like that. There's plenty of math you can do to get into why this is not broken, but also keep in mind a D8, D6, D4 on average would be a plus 11 to a roll, and someone spending 3/4 of their turn to add plus 11. That's a lot as far as action economy goes. Now, does it create epic moments, and does it really increase the chance of a move to hit and other things? Yes. So it's absolutely, I think, in a perfect balanced spot right now where there's a much more chances to use it, especially in the time where you've spent your first 3 action points. You're like, okay, I feel like I've done my turn. And then you have 1 extra point. You know what? Ooh, I could do a help. Inspiring allies to be able to help each other. Time out. If any of this sounds interesting to y'all and you're from D&D, Pathfinder, all that kind of stuff, and you're interested in some of these things I'm saying about action points, 4 of them, and this balancing of things, stacking advantage, disadvantage, help action, other things, and this sounds interesting, then I have a ton of other videos on the channel and a ton of other live streams that I do talking about DC20, answering questions about what this brand new game is. And if all of that makes you even more interested, you can check out the link down in the description to pick up a copy of DC20 and get the alpha version of the game yourself. It's available right now. These alpha purchases really help fund the game and get us towards the Kickstarter that we're going to be launching in the middle of this year. And the link down in the description of this video, I am going to take the help action towards Luke Hart from the DM Layer. He has helped me out as a channel, and we've even he's actually one of the people that's played DC20 the most. He's been in multiple different play tests in different conventions that I've been at. He's spoken very highly of the system, and we had a great time. So the link down in the description to get the alpha of this game is going to be his affiliate link, so % of sales go towards him. Just trying to give back to other content creators that spread the love of DC20 to them too, and increase the community of creators and you guys. All right, now back to the help action and how it could also be used in Dungeons and Dragons to port it over with a homebrew rule. But first, the other restriction that I've put in to help balance the help action in DC20 is restrictions of what you have to declare what you're helping with. You can't just say, I help them, and then you help them. So there has to be a declaration of something that happens. First of all, as the help action, I'll put it up on the screen right now. The first big thing you have to declare is what you're helping with. Are you helping with an attacking type of thing where they make an attack check, a spell check to attack something, or are you doing a skill check or a trade check? So there's 2 options. Let's say you chose to help with an attack of some kind. You as the helper need to be within 1 space of the person you're helping or within 1 space of the target they're attacking. You can role play this out in any way that you want, whether you're messing with the enemy in some way, being within 1 space, hitting it or distracting it, or you're next to them, talking to them, calling out a spot to hit. And then for the second option, if you want to help them with a skill check or a trade check, all you have to do is declare what check you're helping them with. For this example, we'll say that you are a ranger and you're helping the barbarian who's about to have to make an athletics check with this alligator. There's no range restriction to this as far as skills and trades go. You just have to be able to see or hear them or whatever, and it makes sense. And what I mean by makes sense is you have to have mastery in whatever you are helping them with, however you describe it. So sure, if you have mastery in athletics and you want to help them with athletics, of course you can do that. That makes absolute sense. I don't even have to say that. But if you want to get creative and you're a ranger, you know a lot about beasts, you know a lot about alligators, you have mastery in the animal skill. Oh my gosh. So you could describe and you could take the help action to be able to help this barbarian with the athletics check, and you'd be using your knowledge of animals, and you would say something about make sure you clamp its mouth shut before you get the idea. So skill and trade checks are a lot less restrictive as far as the location where you need to be. There's not really a range on it. You just have to be able to describe something that makes sense of how you're helping them. And then for attacking, the restriction is only that you have to be within 1 space of the person that you're helping or the target that they're attacking. And that's it. You're left with a very flexible help action that only costs 1 action point and is a D8, D6, D4 if you keep doing it. And there's the restrictions of what options you have. Now, if you do like this concept and you're still interested in DC20, but you haven't made the plunge yet to try it out, and you're still playing D&D or other games like this, and you want to shift that advantage over to a D8, here's how to do it. Specifically in combat, how I've done it before, and it's actually felt good. The help action has felt good in D&D. Crazy thing to say. Here's how it works. If you take the help action towards someone's attack that they are attacking with, yes, they add that D8 onto their roll, and whatever the value of that D8 is, let's just say it's a 4 for this case. So all right, cool, I get a 4. You as the helper would roll that D8. I think that's cool still. Let's say you roll a 4. They would add 4 to their attack roll, and to their damage if they hit. That means, yes, you have sacrificed your action. You did not take an action, correct, but you did give them a higher chance to hit, giving them the result of your help die added to their attack roll. And if they do hit, you deal extra damage. Now, obviously at higher levels, this will start to fall off because that damage wouldn't really be as impactful. So you could start to say that it's twice the result. Or if you want to do for marshals and they have attacks, and in general, you have a multi-attack, you could say that you could swap out one of those attacks for a help action. There's lots of other things that you might have to add, adjust, and tweak along the way, but that's at least a little patch homebrew rule that you could do to try and port this thing over. But there's a lot of issues with just the core balance of D&D in general and how that scales and how things start to in general fall apart in the game. So I hope this video has helped you, See what I helped you with your help action in your game, whether you're playing other games or DC20. And also, if you're interested in knowing more about help, there's lots of different things about help actions outside of combat, how to combat that whole situation, how it can get weird and clunky where a bunch of people are trying to do something and they all want to help and it just gets weird. If you're interested in that video, like the video, share the video, all that kind of stuff. If this video does well, I'll make another follow-up video on help actions outside of combat. But until next time, stay creative and think outside the box. Peace.